Now, the truth is, studio owners, that you really can't grow a thriving studio business without good systems and processes in place. Now, nobody knows this better than my beautiful client, Isabella Nikodinovski, who is the director of N2 Dance Productions. And we're going to touch on that today because Isabella has gone from 1 to 2 to 3 locations here in New South Wales, Sydney. And the reason that she's able to continue that growth and expansion and have continuity across her sites is because she has good systems and processes in place. Now, in this episode, we talk about how she can't be everywhere at once. It's absolutely impossible. And some of the things that she implements to help her in her growth. So we want to share that. But of course, we talk about a whole bunch of things. Isabella has actually been on my show before a couple of years ago. Now, she came into my world. We initially met at a networking event amongst studio owners. This was before COVID hit, like literally, I think it was a month or two before COVID hit. And we were talking about the challenges of studio ownership and all the things. And we were having this roundtable discussion at, some restaurant or whatever it was. And it was just really interesting that when we reflected back a couple of months later, we're like, wow, we were complaining about essentially not much because when COVID hit, the world changed and we knew it. But yeah, it was so interesting that we met in that way, that little, networking space, to then eventually have her come into the fold of Talent Manager Bootcamp, which is my course that I designed to help studio owners create in-house talent agencies. So she was in my beta round, which means essentially it was being built while her and another studio group was in there. They were my test dummies, my guinea pigs essentially. And that was a good couple of years ago now. And I'm so grateful that Izzy has stayed with me all this time. After the course, she's actually stayed on and become a long-term client of mine. She's actually the first coaching client that I took on. Oh God, I think we're talking 3 years ago now. And she's still with me today. She's inside Studio Talent Collective, which is my agency where it is a collaboration of studio owners under one agency umbrella. And I support studio owners within that collective agency to be talent managers and represent their students within our agency umbrella. So yes, we're going to talk about that a little bit too. We're going to talk about Studio Talent Collective, but we're also going to talk about that growth. Now, Isabella, with the support of her sister, Alicia, is based out of their studios in Ashfield, Ermington, and Wentworth Point. Dance has been an integral part of their lives for as long as they can remember, and combined, these sisters have over 35 years of dance experience, competing in many Eisteddfods, undertaking examinations in all genres, and endless performances for private functions and community events. Now, the director of N2 Dance Productions, she really does aim to create a nurturing environment for children to develop their talents and appreciation for the art of dance. I think this is a really beautiful story of how she started from humble beginnings to then, having this growth and this wonderful journey that she shares with her sister, and how all of this has led to where she is today, and obviously with the great challenges that come from studio ownership and the help that having good systems, software, processes in place, how that's really made it possible for Izzy to thrive. So let's dive into that conversation now with the wonderful Isabella Nikodinovski. Stick around. Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and All That Jazz. I'm your performing arts business coach and host, Josephine Lancuba. This show is designed to bring you inspiration, information, and the instruments you need to create and grow the studio biz of your dreams. I will bring you a mix of solo episodes as well as interviews where I tap into the minds of industry experts. My career started as a performer over 2 decades ago. I later became a speaker, theatrical producer, and talent manager, as well as having a successful teaching career in singing, drama, and dance. 10 years into my professional journey, I became a mama of two and with a baby on my hip, opened up my very own performing arts studio. From hardship and humble beginnings to 4 studio locations and a multi-six-figure performing arts biz, I know how to attract students and keep them coming back for more. And in the show, I will share with you my experiences to help you thrive and fast-track your path to success. I know you have a spark inside of you with dreams and goals for the future. As your coach and mentor, I'm here to help you step into your limelight and be a cheerleader in your ear each and every week. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk studio biz and all that jazz. Welcome to the show, the beautiful Isabella Nikodinovski from N2 Dance Productions. Love having you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, Jo.
I know. And we were just saying before we hit record that it has been a couple of years. And I think it's so cool because, you've been with me as a client for a very long time. I think going on to, 3 or I don't even know, 3 years perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
And there's been such an evolution in your business and such growth and change. And we're going to talk about all of that today. But first, because I know it's been a really long time and so many new friends come into our podcast world. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got started into dance and then, started a business.
Yeah, so again, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back to share our story again. So N2 Dance started now coming on to 7 years ago. I started my dance journey at 3, like your typical studio owner. Most of us start quite early. And my parents put me into dance. It was a bit of a story. I was a child that was diagnosed with ADHD, and back then when I was diagnosed, there wasn't, as much emphasis on taking medication, all those sorts of things. So they just said, just go put her into some activities, see if she can get rid of all that energy somewhere. So my parents took me to absolutely everything, and they took me to the dance studio. And when the teacher came out to welcome me into the class, my mum apologized before the class even happened. She goes, I'm apologizing now because I don't know what she's going to do. She might run amok in your class. And then, yeah, so she came out and the teacher said I had never met a more focused 3-year-old in my life. And so mum said, great, take her. She's all yours. And so that's the start of my dance journey.
Where you've got to really channel that energy, right? And isn't that such an amazing positive story and message, especially because we know that there are so many children within our classrooms that have all these different things that parents come to us with. So yeah, that's awesome. So you started at 3, which is very young, but obviously made a really positive impact in your life. How did that progress over the years to then being a teacher and then going, you know what, I'm gonna run a dance studio?
Yeah, I think it was something I always wanted to do. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved performing. I was part of all our show groups. We did a Stedfords performances every second weekend, and I really loved that. But I think what really struck me was the relationships I had built with some of my teachers along the years, and I really looked up to them. And it was nice to think that one day I could do the same thing and carry on, like their legacy through my teaching, and to keep up my skill, and be able to give that to the next generation of dancers, because I don't know, that's what lights a fire in my belly. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. What, because I consider you a spring chicken still. What age did you open up your dance studio?
Well, maybe some people can do the maths, but I was 24 at the time.
24. And I want to ask you how many years ago. Are you going to tell me, like, don't do this to me?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
42. No shame
I
in it,
already
right?
dropped it. No, there's no shame in age. But yeah, like I said, so this is coming on to our 7th year.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. So you were in your early to mid 20s when you started,
Yeah.
and that's such a big leap to take to start a business in your 20s. Had you studied in any of like, in business studies or anything like that, or you just were passionate about the arts?
Both. I was passionate about both. Before I finished year 12, crazy me decided to sign up and do my Cert 4 in dance teaching and management. So I did that alongside my HSC, which some might think is crazy, but I just, I made it work. And when I finished, I went to uni and I did a business degree majoring in HR. So people skills are definitely something I enjoy. I enjoy being, with people, like I said, different ages as well. And you can see that through the development of other things we do alongside the studio work as well. But I really enjoy training both kids in the classroom and also at all ages, I should add, and also teachers as well. Like that's a really big, exciting part of my job too.
Yeah, so that leadership piece is something
Yeah.
that you're quite attracted to. Find that interesting because I think when it comes to leadership, it's one of those things where some people really enjoy a leadership role. Like I love to train as well, and I loved working with the teachers and running training days and things like that. That was actually quite an enjoyable thing for me to do, whereas other people absolutely dread it. I mean, I just read something on one of those studio owner Facebook groups this morning. Someone posted that they'd hired a junior teacher. They've just opened up a studio. They've hired some junior and like assistant teachers, blah, blah. And they're really unhappy with their progress. And they were expecting them to go and do the work outside the classroom and prepare and be great. And they're just so disappointed it hasn't panned out. And all the comments from the more seasoned studio owners like, did you provide any training? Or it's a little
Yeah.
bit of a big ask to get a 17-year-old to walk through the door and expect that they're just going to nail it. What sort of, I mean, obviously you've gone from one studio, two studios, three studio locations now. I'm imagining that there's been a lot of processes in place, but when it comes to team, what do you think the most helpful processes you've had in place that's really contributed to supporting your team and the growth of your business?
I guess, like you said, I mean, we started and we grew quite organically. So we started off with one location 7 years ago. Then we happened to find another venue that was being built, and we sort of jumped at the opportunity because they had a beautiful space to offer. And we sort of took that on. It wasn't too far from the other location. So that just grew organically. And then 2 years ago, I was approached to purchase a studio that I had danced at and taught at growing up. And again, that wasn't something on the cards, but I'm grateful that we took on that opportunity to expand. But it definitely requires systems in place. So, having built from the ground up with a small studio, we had 7 kids in our first, few weeks of opening. It's amazing to actually reflect back on that 7 years later. But I think processes, a lot of people tend to hesitate about, investing the time and the money into learning new processes, and using different softwares as well. So there's some great studio softwares out there that help with, role recording, those sorts of things, and implementing those and having solid procedures built while we were still quite small and considering the growth that we wanted, really helped us to establish like a good footing with how we run things internally. And so that's obviously helped us to manage the growth, even though we hadn't planned for it originally. But
I
yeah.
think what you said there was a really key point. You probably don't even realize how key it was. And that is that you started implementing systems before you were even, a larger studio. You started when you were in those early stages, when you were a smaller business, so that when the growth happened, those systems were in place. Now, listen, if you're a studio that's been around for 5 years and you got no systems in place, and it doesn't matter. It's never too late to start systems and processes, but it really helps if you do it from the get-go, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that. It's interesting too because you're a part of my membership and we do quarterly accountability calls. And I remember one of them was when we talked about your third location.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the importance of training and getting your team to be cohesive across the venues because I've sold and bought studios myself, and it is different because you can purchase a studio business that has a completely different culture, different teacher culture, etc. What do you think with your, HR training background, your business acumen, you've got these three locations and it's something that we really focused on in our accountability calls. What do you think was the key thing that that helped bring a cohesiveness to having essentially teams across 3 locations. Like, what do you think helps with that?
Well, firstly, I think you definitely need to have scheduled, set mandatory meetings,
Mhm.
just like any other business in any other industry. I think it's important that you spend the time investing your knowledge, your skills, and how you want your business to be run. Like you said, people can't just expect a teacher to come into a new space, or even, in my case, where we took on a studio, even though I knew the culture of the studio because I was working there beforehand, there were still things I wanted done differently, that we had found worked at our other 2 locations beforehand. And so it's about being on top of training staff, making sure you're getting them together, providing that same messaging to all of them so that, you can, because you can't be in 3 places at once as much as I try. Um, you need to
Absolutely.
make sure that the people that you're investing in are running the business and, creating that legacy that you want at all of your locations so that the experience that a client has is the same at all three. Doesn't matter who the teacher is, doesn't matter where the location is. I think that's a really important thing that then obviously leads on to your brand image, and your reputation as a business. I also think you need to be open to learning. I'm very committed to my professional development. I'm always looking for something new to do, going to a new expo, attending conferences, online webinars, those sorts of things. Um, and I guess also to just to talk a bit more to that, I also have done my training and assessment course, and so I currently work with an RTO. For those who don't know, a registered training organization, and I am one of their assessors as well. So I also am working with people that are coming through our industry that are going through and doing their Cert 4s, their diplomas in dance teaching and management, and really working with them as well to be able to, increase the profile and, my knowledge, their knowledge, and, our industry as a whole.
Yeah. And that personal development piece is so important. And, that mentorship piece. I mean, I still have mentors. I think, you know, the mentors need mentors need
That's
mentors.
it.
Like, I just think that there's no end to how much you can gain from continuous,
Mhm.
education, support, mentorship. I do love that. What was the transition like, especially because I know Studios 1 and 2 were organic, as you said, but Studio 3 was purchased. Did you straight away change the name, or did you stay with the old branding? Like, I think some people that are thinking of that expansion and growth might be interested in hearing how that kind of works.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it might be different in all circumstances. So take it with a grain of salt. But the way we went about it was we were teaching, and when I say we, my sister and I were both teaching at that studio. We had both been part of that studio for a while. And so people knew already that we had 2 other locations. So for us, it made sense just to do a clean cut when we took over. And so we've kept the legacy of the name, it's still visible on our website and some of our branding. But we did a clean cut over to renaming that studio, getting new uniforms in, that sort of thing, to keep our brand a bit more cohesive. And
Yeah.
we found that it worked, like I said, I think because we were already sort of in the studio, and so it didn't feel like a huge shift for people.
Hmm.
We found that that worked well for us.
What was the retention like?
Um, it was pretty high, actually. It's a smaller studio, which was really great because we got to know everyone. And we spent a lot of time investing in, learning about our people, our new clients, not just the kids, but the families as well, because that's a big core value for us. And we found that it was pretty good. The retention was great, and we had some good feedback along the way, workshopping some ideas, just to see, it was a good time because no one likes change, let's be honest here. And so we thought we'll try and bring them on board, keep it a bit of an open process. There was really high levels of communication from staff, the existing staff that were there, from parents and from kids as well.
Mm. Do you have support in the way of like administrative team, or is it more teaching staff? How do you manage it all?
Yeah, I think it's that funny work-life balance term that we throw
Mm.
around. I enjoy, contrary to what some people might think when running a business, I actually enjoy doing all the back end stuff. I think it's really important. I'm quite analytical, and so I like doing the numbers side of thing, and that's a nice break for me outside of the studio when I'm teaching. It's generally myself on the admin, and I rely on having really great staff in the classroom, particularly for our older kids who need a bit more of a push. And with our younger kids, I that's probably my favorite age group. So I tend to take over, the younger classes in the morning and spend the afternoons doing admin.
Yeah, and you've got to tap into whatever your skill set is. I was much the same. I ended up not teaching in the studio eventually, after years, of course, but eventually moved away from teaching and doing more of the back end stuff. And of course, I'd step in and I'd be there for the workshops and all the bits. But yes, I really enjoyed the back end as well, to be honest. Uh, why do you think, some people might struggle when it comes to the administrative side? Like, what sort of things do you have in place to help you? Are you tapping into AI tools? Like, what are some of the things that you're using to help when it comes to your administration? Or is it just you banging it out old school style?
I think it's a combination of everything. I think, like with anything, you have to be open to new tools coming available to you. You need to be open to new um, software programs or, updates with your current programs. Moving away from just like those Excel sheets, I think everyone sort of starts and goes, this is going to work. We don't need to buy all these extra things, but sometimes you do need to tap into them and they might have a monetary value attached to them. Sometimes they don't. Um, I think I do use AI to its full capacity, probably not. I don't think any of us actually know how to use it to its full capacity yet because it's so new and we're still exploring, you know, how long is a piece of string, really. Um, but yeah, I enjoy using all the different softwares.
I think it's funny too because I actually started with a spreadsheet and then moved very quickly to
Yeah,
studio software. It's just so much easier, and the time save. It's interesting because my daughter's actually signed up to a new studio and she's doing acro there. And she said to me, she did a trial actually just yesterday. And when she finished, I said, how did it go? Like, how do you feel?
yeah.
She goes, oh, Mum, it was too short. I went, okay, so that's good feedback, right? Because that's, to me, that's like the best feedback you could give because she wanted it. She's like, I wish it went for longer.
Wanted more. Yeah,
And I was like, okay, cool. So we're obviously happy and that's fine. But and I'm not going to mention the studio, I'm not going to do any of that. But they're very old school and they've got their enrollment systems by paper and everything is by paper. Like I got my invoice, which was a print, it's not emailed, like
yeah,
that kind of stuff, with their BSB details on the paper and all that. It's so funny because I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to help you so much. But they've been around for 100 years and that's what they do and they're comfortable with that. But gosh, you could save so much time, right?
yeah.
It's
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Things like direct debit, people have signed up to Netflix. You go to the gym, you sign up, and the money just gets taken out of your account. It's just easy, it's set and forget. And I think those things make it easier because imagine all the chasing of fees and paperwork. And do we have that waiver signed? And where is the emergency details kept?
totally.
There's so
And
many legal things too.
oh, for sure. You know what, as well? I think as well, when it comes to those sorts of payment processes, it's interesting because before we introduced direct debit several years ago, and full transparency, I've sold my studio just a few months ago, but prior to that, we were on direct debits, monthly memberships with our members. But before that, we were on invoice. And honestly, chasing bad debtors or late payers, not necessarily ill-intended, just late payers,
Mm.
um, it was like a part-time job. So I think, even from a time-saving perspective, but it's also a money-saving activity because like you
Yeah,
said, people are so reluctant to invest in the software, but you or someone you're paying is chasing those invoices. That
that's
wage is going to be more than the monthly subscription. It just is. but people don't consider their time. And is that part of your equation? Like, do you ever think about your time when you're making like an investment into something like a program or a software or something in your studio?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. I think at the end of the day, because you want to get a good return on something if you are. And I think you just need to, like you say, you need to analyze it. You need to strip it back and go, well, if we're not going to implement that expensive software, how much is it going to cost me conversely if I have a staff member doing that? And I guess
Or if you do it yourself, right? Because you've
that's
got to
it.
count yourself. Because the time you're spending chasing those invoices, you could be marketing for new clients.
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah,
It is a waste of time, really, if you think about it.
yeah, totally. I love that. I love that you are so all over it. I love that you're you've been with me for so long and it's been so amazing. I mean, you started with me in Talent Manager Bootcamp and Izzy here was actually part of our my beta round, which means before I released the course, which was a couple of years ago, I did a trial run with Izzy in another studio.
Yeah.
And you've been with me ever since. And then since then, you've completed Talent Manager Bootcamp. You've gone on to start an in-house talent agency. That's another thing. And I know, and I would, and now I think is a really good time, by the way, for you to really launch that into the new studios, like
Yeah.
full on. But, I just think it's so fantastic. And then you've progressed to having an in-house talent agency representing your students. You've gone on to join me inside of Studio Talent Collective, which is the agency I created so that studio owners like yourself can have the ease and the things done for you within the agency setting, which really just saving you that time in that initial setup and just having that ongoing support within that collective. Tell me about that. So, when you started talent management, what were your initial thoughts or concerns, or what was it like?
Well, I guess, like you said, it was something that we kind of came together and it sort of happened. Again, it was quite organic how it happened. But I'm really thankful that we had crossed paths at that time because it's probably something I never really looked into. Growing up, I didn't think I had that many opportunities to do that, whether it was the time or, my connections, whatever it was. But the fact that we can make this so accessible to everyday people, I'm just an everyday person, and it's great that we can offer these opportunities to kids in our studio to do something with their talent at such a young age as well, especially because you know they might be a child star.
Well, that's it. And you don't know. And just being in the arena, right? The arena of opportunity. That's what it's about. It's about
That's it.
providing those opportunities for your students. What have you loved most about being a part of Studio Talent Collective?
I think the connections with other agencies or sorry, other people in the agency as well has been really good to expand our network in that way. It's nice to have like-minded studio owners that are doing the same sort of thing to bounce ideas off as well. I enjoy it's actually an easy process. It doesn't take long. It doesn't add hours of work to your day. And I think that's really important because like we said, we're always on the go. And even if you've got all the systems in place, sometimes, things still do take time. We're not saying that these tools just give you all the time in the world. But it does allow you to implement things like this to support your main business of running the studio. You're able to give these additional opportunities outside of that to give you a point of difference as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it is true, being able to implement this with ease and with confidence and support and that community aspect is a really big part of Studio Talent Collective. Now, if we're going to think about everything overall, you've grown, you've started an in-house talent agency, you've got this third studio, it's all happening, right? Tell me, what defines success for you? Like, what does success look like? Do you feel like you've hit the success pinnacle, or is this an evolution? What does it look like?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think success means so many different things to so many different people. For me, I think this wasn't the path I thought I would take, like starting the first business, then having the second location, then the third location. Like I didn't envisage that at all. But I think having adaptability, um, and being open to new ideas and new avenues. Even with like the talent agency, like I said, it sort of changes the trajectory of your business, in a good way, obviously, because you're being exposed to different opportunities. Um, I think success for me is just having the opportunity to provide these different experiences for the kids. I think it's also being able to, the reason people start their own businesses is usually a passion project, which I knew I was passionate about teaching and about dancing and about supporting our industry. Um, I think it's also having that flexibility, to work for yourself, to have the opportunity to do things. And I think that's what success is for me. It would be to have that flexibility in my life to be able to say yes to all the things that I want to do, and that I want to try.
Yeah, flexibility. I like that word. That's actually something that people don't often say when I ask that question, but it is such a simple concept, yet so hard sometimes to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Being flexible is to me freedom.
Yeah.
So flexibility equals freedom in my mind. It's about, like you said, being able to say yes to the things you want. So I love that. Who or what inspires you most?
I'd have to say the kids. I think that's, again, going back to the whole, why do we start this? It's usually because of our love for dance, our love for teaching. And I think for me, it's inspiring to go into the classroom and see the kids just absorb so much. And to see them come in and, there's so many different things out there, and they choose to come to the studio each week. They're so excited, especially the younger ones, that's Tuesday morning can't come soon enough to go see Miss Izzy every week. And I think it's inspiring because they are going to live such a different life to us from the way we grew up and how we experience dance. Um, I think that's a whole other conversation in itself, the experiences we had and the expectations that were put on us as dancers back in the day and how that's really changed over time. And I think that that keeps pushing me to try better, to learn more, to explore, diversities in the classroom even. I think there's so much to be taken from the actual kids in the room. It's yeah, it is inspiring. I think it's the kids that inspire
Yeah,
me.
and it has changed. The industry landscape has completely changed. And even just from, a body image perspective, there were so many pressures put on. Well, I know I can only speak to for myself, but there was so much pressure on us growing up. And I actually see it in the industry as well as a whole, like the performance entertainment industry is shifting and changing. There's still work to be done, but uh, if you look back, I don't know if you ever watched America's Next Top Model. Did you ever
Yes.
watch that?
Yes.
Oh my God, with Tyra Banks. If you look back at those episodes, that would not see the light of day now.
It
Like the
couldn't.
industry as a whole, I'm talking, modeling, entertainment, dance, everything has changed so much. So I think this generation is lucky in that sense that there is more acceptance. It's still a journey, of course, but there's definitely more acceptance in the classroom, not just from, a body image perspective, but like you said, that inclusive aspect as well.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
think even, when we talk about safe dance in the classroom is not just making sure there's no slips on the floor or the bars hanging off the wall.
yeah.
It's so much more than that. It's about, empowering the kids to be able to have a conversation with you as well and say, this makes me feel uncomfortable, or this, having that voice, I think, is really important as well. It's not just this is the way it's done and there's no ifs or buts about it. And I think that's what keeps it fresh. And that's what
Mm.
keeps it inspiring as well, because they bring new perspective because, like we said, they're growing up in a different world to us. They've got so much more resources behind them, accessible now. So, yeah, it's about empowering them, obviously in the right way, to be able to use that voice for good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've come into 2025. It's a new year.
Yep.
I'm still saying Happy New Year to people because I feel like it just started. Does anyone else just feel like it just started? My goodness, it's like January was a blip. Doesn't that just happen so fast?
January's not even on the calendar.
It's not on the calendar. So January was a blip. We're already in February. Tell me what's next. What have you got on the cards?
Well, this year we sort of are looking at growth again. I think that's a really important part of the journey, especially with taking on a new location and reestablishing all those, those boundaries and that sort of thing, expectations. We're really wanting to increase the N2 love in our newest location. Um, just chasing new opportunities. Again, I don't know what's coming my way, and I'm always open to the flow of whatever's coming through. And I think that's really important, again, in business, to be able to adapt and, be at the forefront of what's happening. So just taking the opportunities as they come up.
What does
I'm
growth mean to you? What does it look like? Like
growth in
more people in the classroom, different programming, like what does growth look like for you?
I think we've found a good baseline for us in terms of we've got a great team, we've got, great kids coming through the door, and I think it's about just growing our community. For me, this year is probably our goal to make sure that, we can continue to, put our N2 love out there in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's constant, isn't it? I feel like growth never ends, you know?
That's it.
But it is part of business. Business is growth. Like when you're not growing, your business is dying. And I know that sounds terrible, but you have to continue to increase your community outreach because people always and inevitably move on. That's what happens. So you have to continue that growth message and still get that community vibing and coming through the doors. So that's a good focus. I like it. So we're not growing and we're not expanding,
No.
right? We are loving up who we have, giving them the best we can, and really building that current community, which I like. All right, so thank you for being on the show. If there was anyone out there thinking about Studio Talent Collective, that is my agency where studio owners can come in and represent their students within our books. The already existing agency structure is right there, ready to go. You're a part of it. You represent your students. You have your own division within our studio representing your students. Um, what would you say? What would you say to studio owners who are thinking about Studio Talent Collective?
I'd say do it. Well, I mean, what's holding you back? It's even at the end of the day, if you don't continue with it, at least going through the course, becoming part of the community and just getting different viewpoints. I think that's the only way that you can continue to evolve. I think that's a big part of growth as well. Because, without that, growth mindset, like you said, your studio is just kind of going to stagnate. And if you're happy with that, maybe you're happy with that. Maybe you've got the great community going for you already. But I think, there's always something new out there. And if you're not sort of tapping into those markets, then, you're missing out. You are hanging out with people like us every week when we jump
That's
on
it.
call.
I like that. They're missing out. Yes, because you want to hang out with these peeps. I tell you, no, it's a great community and I love that you're a part of it. Thank you. If people want to find you, where's the best place to go?
You can find us if you type N2 Dance in on your socials. We're there. We're also on TikTok now. Again, we have to grow and evolve. So we're giving TikTok a try too. And yeah, would love to, always happy to answer any questions if anyone wants to know more about Studio Talent Collective or, my story as well. Happy to have a chat.
Love that. Yeah, check it out, guys. N2 Dance on socials. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Studio Biz and All That Jazz. If you're a studio owner who's interested in having an in-house talent agency or perhaps would like to learn more about Studio Talent Collective, my agency, which is a collaboration of studio owners representing their students under one agency umbrella, then get in touch. You can email me podcast@josephinelancuba.com or book a free chat. Let's talk about it. There's a link in the show notes. Hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day. This episode was brought to you by my signature group coaching program, Studio Biz Success, an amazing and accessible online educational platform for performing arts studio owners designed to help you grow your business with confidence and get your results. Check it out at josephinelancuba.com along with other great industry resources to help you leap into the studio biz you deserve. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. You can tag me on social media at Josephine Lancuba and give it a review. Your support helps the show to grow so I can continue to provide you with useful, informative content. I'm Josephine Lancuba, your biggest cheerleader. Thanks for listening and shine bright.